3 weeks passed slowly in the quiet nursing home. Sunday after Sunday, Arthur sat in his chair by the window. He held the unopened letter tightly against his chest. He watched the parking lot from morning until dark, waiting for his son. Thomas never came. Every Sunday night, Arthur went to bed with tears falling down his wrinkled face. He refused to eat his warm soup. He refused to talk to the kind nurses. The deep pain of abandonment was slowly destroying his fragile life. Barnaby could not stand the sound of his master crying. He knew he had to use his secret weapon. In the middle of the dark night, the dog crawled under the bed. He pulled out the old brown leather shoe with his teeth. The dog carried the shoe across the room. He placed it carefully right next to the closed wooden door. He nudged it so it looked exactly like someone had just taken it off. Then he went back to sleep beside his master's bed. When the morning sun filled the room, Arthur woke up slowly. He took a deep breath. His sad eyes suddenly opened wide. He smelled the familiar, spicy cologne and the exact scent of his son's sweat. He looked quickly toward the wooden door. "Thomas," Arthur whispered, his voice trembling with hope. He saw the old leather shoe sitting by the door. A beautiful, bright smile appeared on his tired face. "He came. He visited me while I was sleeping. He had to leave early for work." It was a perfect, silent lie. Arthur felt loved again. He happily ate his breakfast that morning. Barnaby wagged his tail, happy to see the bright smile return. But the sweet illusion was almost destroyed later that same sunny afternoon. Nurse Sarah came into the room to clean the floors. She was a kind, young woman. She saw the old, dirty shoe near the door. She picked it up, wrinkling her nose at the bad smell. She turned toward the plastic trash can. Before Sarah could drop the shoe, Barnaby leaped across the room. He did not bite her, but he stood directly between her and the trash can. He lowered his head and showed his sharp white teeth. A low, warning growl rumbled in his chest. Sarah froze in complete shock. Barnaby was the friendliest dog in the building. This aggressive behavior is called resource guarding. The dog was violently protecting the dirty shoe. He would fight anyone to keep his master's beautiful, false hope alive. 3 weeks passed slowly in the quiet nursing home. Sunday after Sunday, Arthur sat in his chair by the window. He held the unopened letter tightly against his chest. He watched the parking lot from morning until dark, waiting for his son. Thomas never came. Every Sunday night, Arthur went to bed with tears falling down his wrinkled face. He refused to eat his warm soup. He refused to talk to the kind nurses. The deep pain of abandonment was slowly destroying his fragile life. Barnaby could not stand the sound of his master crying. He knew he had to use his secret weapon. In the middle of the dark night, the dog crawled under the bed. He pulled out the old brown leather shoe with his teeth. The dog carried the shoe across the room. He placed it carefully right next to the closed wooden door. He nudged it so it looked exactly like someone had just taken it off. Then he went back to sleep beside his master's bed. When the morning sun filled the room, Arthur woke up slowly. He took a deep breath. His sad eyes suddenly opened wide. He smelled the familiar, spicy cologne and the exact scent of his son's sweat. He looked quickly toward the wooden door. "Thomas," Arthur whispered, his voice trembling with hope. He saw the old leather shoe sitting by the door. A beautiful, bright smile appeared on his tired face. "He came. He visited me while I was sleeping. He had to leave early for work. It was a perfect, silent lie. Arthur felt loved again. He happily ate his breakfast that morning. Barnaby wagged his tail, happy to see the bright smile return. But the sweet illusion was almost destroyed later that same sunny afternoon. Nurse Sarah came into the room to clean the floors. She was a kind, young woman. She saw the old, dirty shoe near the door. She picked it up, wrinkling her nose at the bad smell. She turned toward the plastic trash can. Before Sarah could drop the shoe, Barnaby leaped across the room. He did not bite her, but he stood directly between her and the trash can. He lowered his head and showed his sharp white teeth. A low, warning growl rumbled in his chest. Sarah froze in complete shock. Barnaby was the friendliest dog in the building. This aggressive behavior is called resource guarding. The dog was violently protecting the dirty shoe. He would fight anyone to keep his master's beautiful, false hope alive. Nurse Sarah slowly put the dirty shoe back on the floor. Barnaby immediately stopped growling. He wagged his golden tail and licked her hand softly. Sarah was very confused, but she understood animals well. She decided to observe the dog closely. For the next few days, Sarah watched Barnaby from the hallway. She noticed a strange and beautiful pattern. Barnaby never played with the brown shoe. He never chewed on the old leather. He treated the dirty object with extreme, careful respect. Sarah realized the shoe was a medical tool. Whenever Arthur started to feel anxious, his heart rate would increase rapidly. A dog can easily hear a fast heartbeat. Whenever this happened, Barnaby would quietly walk over to the shoe by the door. The smart dog would use his wet nose to push the shoe a few inches closer to Arthur's bed. He pushed it slowly across the wooden floor. The gentle sound of the sliding leather mimicked the soft sound of human footsteps approaching. The smell of the spicy cologne would suddenly grow stronger in the small room. Arthur would take a deep breath, smell the familiar scent, and instantly calm down. His racing heart would slow perfectly. The invisible presence of his son comforted him completely. Sarah stood in the hallway with tears in her eyes. The Paw Logic was incredibly profound. Barnaby was not a confused animal. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was manipulating the environment to create a protective bubble around the old man. Dogs live entirely in the truth of the present moment. Barnaby knew the cruel son was gone forever. He remembered the betrayal at the trash can. But he chose to bend his dog reality to save his human's fragile, fading spirit. He used the scent of his absolute worst enemy as a powerful medicine. It was an act of pure, selfless love. Barnaby accepted the heavy burden of the lie every single day. He was the silent guardian of a broken old man's dreams. Sarah decided to keep the secret. She told the other cleaning staff to never touch the brown shoe. It became a permanent fixture in the room. For many months, the simple leather object kept Arthur smiling through the long, lonely winter nights. However, time is a cruel thief. As the cold winter slowly turned into a warm spring, a new, terrible problem quietly arrived. The invisible magic of the shoe was running out, and Barnaby's perfect, loving lie was in extreme danger. 6 long months passed. The warm spring air blew through the nursing home windows. But inside the room, a dark cloud returned. The brown leather shoe was losing its power. The strong scent of Thomas's spicy cologne and sweat had completely faded away. Without the familiar smell, Arthur's deep depression came back immediately. The illusion of the secret visits was broken. He stopped looking at the door. He turned his face to the blank wall and refused to take his daily heart medication from Nurse Sarah. Barnaby paced nervously around the small room. He pushed the old shoe with his nose, but Arthur did not smile. The dog whined softly, feeling completely desperate. He needed to fix the broken lie, but he could not magically create the missing scent. Later that afternoon, a loud plumber came to fix a broken pipe in the hallway bathroom. Barnaby walked out of the room to investigate. As he got closer to the working man, his powerful nose suddenly picked up a very familiar, sharp smell. The plumber was using a specific brand of cheap, strong shaving soap. It was the exact same soap Thomas used every morning. The scent was slightly different, but the chemical base was a perfect match. Barnaby had found a new source of hope. The plumber had left a dirty cleaning rag on the floor outside the bathroom door. It was covered in strong chemicals and a little bit of the shaving soap. Barnaby quickly ran back to his room and grabbed the scentless brown shoe in his teeth. He carried the shoe to the hallway. When the plumber was not looking, Barnaby dropped the shoe onto the dirty rag. He aggressively rolled the leather over the wet fabric, pressing it down hard. He was artificially recharging the scent battery of his lie. Barnaby brought the refreshed shoe back and placed it near Arthur's bed. The old man took a weak breath. His eyes fluttered open. He smelled the fresh shaving soap. "Thomas," he whispered, a tiny smile forming on his pale lips. He finally drank his medicine. The plan worked perfectly, but it came with a painful cost. The harsh plumbing chemicals on the rag were toxic. By the next morning, the skin around Barnaby's mouth and nose was covered in a bright red, painful allergic rash. It burned terribly. Nurse Sarah put soothing cream on the dog's sore face, wiping away her own tears. Barnaby did not care about the physical pain. He licked Arthur's sleeping hand gently. He would gladly suffer 1,000 burns to keep his master's heart safely dreaming. Arthur's health grew worse as summer arrived. His eyesight became very blurry and weak. He spent most of his days lying quietly in his bed. He still held the sealed white envelope from Thomas tightly in his fragile hands. It was his most precious treasure. "Sarah," Arthur whispered softly one sunny afternoon. The young nurse walked over and held his cold hand. "My eyes are failing me," he said sadly. "Please, can you open my son's letter? I want to hear his loving words before I go to sleep." Sarah smiled warmly and gently took the old, wrinkled envelope from his hands. Barnaby sat up from his bed, watching her closely. Sarah carefully broke the paper seal. She unfolded the single sheet of white paper, expecting to read a sweet, emotional message. As her eyes scanned the typed words, Sarah's warm smile completely vanished. The blood drained from her face. Her hands started to shake violently. This was not a letter of love or comfort. It was a cold, cruel legal document from a city lawyer. The letter stated that Thomas was officially giving up all legal responsibility for his father. It coldly announced that he would stop paying for the nursing home room next month. He ordered the home to move Arthur to a cheap, state-run charity facility immediately. It was the ultimate, unforgivable betrayal. Thomas had handed his father a death sentence disguised as a promise. Sarah felt physically sick. She looked down at the hopeful, blind old man waiting for his son's sweet words. She opened her mouth, but she could not speak. "What does he say, Sarah?" Arthur asked, his voice trembling with deep emotion. "Does he miss me?" Sarah hesitated, tears burning in her eyes. How could she possibly read this cruel truth to a dying man? It would kill him instantly. Before Sarah could force a fake sentence from her lips, a sudden blur of golden fur flew across the room. Barnaby jumped high onto the small wooden bedside table. The dog's heavy paws slammed directly into a large, full cup of boiling black coffee. The hot coffee exploded across the air. The dark, sticky liquid landed directly on the legal document in Sarah's shaking hands. The hot coffee soaked the paper instantly, completely blurring the black ink into a messy, unreadable stain. The cruel words were destroyed forever. "Oh no! The letter!" Sarah gasped, dropping the ruined paper. Barnaby whined and licked Arthur's hand, pretending it was a clumsy accident. The smart dog had intentionally destroyed the evidence to protect the beautiful lie. The old man's heart remained perfectly safe. The loud, terrifying sound of medical alarms woke Sarah in the middle of the night. She ran quickly into Arthur's small room. The old man was holding his chest, struggling to breathe. His face was completely pale. Barnaby was standing on the bed, barking in panic. Arthur was having a massive, deadly stroke. Doctors rushed into the room and pushed the old man into the emergency unit. Sarah waited outside the door with the crying golden dog. After an hour, a tired doctor walked out. He shook his head sadly. Arthur's weak heart was failing completely. He only had 24 hours left to live. Sarah brought Barnaby back into the quiet hospital room. Arthur was lying on the white bed, surrounded by beeping machines. He was very weak and mostly blind now. He reached his shaking hand out into the empty air. "Thomas," he whispered softly. "Please, I just want to hold my son's hand." Sarah could not hold her tears anymore. The dying man's final wish was so simple and heartbreaking. She knew Thomas was a terrible person. But Arthur was dying right now. He needed his son. Sarah pulled out her cell phone and dialed the emergency contact number for Thomas. She placed the phone on the bedside table and turned on the loudspeaker. She wanted Arthur to hear his son's voice one last time. The phone rang 3 times. Finally, someone answered. "Hello," Thomas said. His voice sounded annoyed and tired, like he had just woken up from sleep. "Thomas, this is Nurse Sarah," she said quickly. "Your father had a severe stroke tonight. The doctors say he will not survive until morning. He is asking for you. Please, you need to come to the hospital right now. He just wants to say goodbye to you." There was a long, cold silence on the phone. Arthur tried to turn his head toward the speaker. He smiled weakly, waiting for his son's loving words. Barnaby stood perfectly still next to the table. The smart dog's ears went flat against his head. He knew that cold voice. "Listen to me very carefully, nurse," Thomas said. His voice was completely empty of any love or sadness. "I sold his house and I paid your clinic. That old man is not my problem anymore. I am not coming. Just let him die in peace and stop calling my phone." The cruel, deadly words floated in the air. Sarah gasped in pure horror. She reached for the phone to turn it off, but she was too slow. Arthur's weak heart monitor started to beep very fast. He was going to hear the terrible truth and die with a broken heart. Suddenly, Barnaby leaped high into the air. The brave dog did not care about the rules. He opened his strong jaws and bit down hard on the cell phone. Crunch. The plastic and glass shattered completely into pieces. The cruel voice was instantly silenced forever. The sweet lie was safe. The destroyed phone lay in pieces on the floor. Sarah looked at the brave dog in complete shock. Barnaby had protected his master's heart at the exact right second. Arthur sighed softly, missing the terrible words. "Did we lose the connection?" the old man whispered weakly, his hand still reaching out. "Yes, Arthur," Sarah lied quickly, wiping her tears. "The storm outside caused a bad connection. But Thomas says he loves you. He is trying to come." Arthur smiled peacefully and closed his eyes. But his hand remained in the air. He was waiting for a real, physical touch. The old brown shoe by the door was completely useless now. Arthur was dying, and his senses were fading. He needed the fresh, warm scent of his son. He needed to feel the real presence of his family. Barnaby looked at the empty, shaking hand. The dog understood the final mission. The storm outside was terrible. Heavy rain hit the hospital windows, and loud thunder shook the walls. A security guard came in and tied Barnaby to a heavy chair with a thick leather leash. The hospital rules said animals must be secured during medical emergencies. Barnaby sat quietly, waiting patiently. When Sarah left the room to get more medicine, Barnaby made his move. The golden retriever bit the thick leather leash with his sharp back teeth. He chewed frantically, ignoring the pain in his mouth. After 10 minutes of hard work, the tough leather finally snapped in half. He was free. Barnaby pushed the hospital door open with his nose. He sneaked past the busy nurses' station like a silent ghost. He found an open emergency exit at the back of the building. The dog ran out into the cold, dark night. The freezing rain immediately soaked his thick golden fur. He was an old dog, and his joints ached in the cold rain. But he did not stop running. He used his incredible memory to navigate the dangerous, wet city streets. He remembered the exact smell of the shiny black car that had abandoned them many months ago. Barnaby ran across busy roads, dodging bright car lights and loud horns. He was almost hit by a fast truck, but he kept going. His pure love for his master gave him endless strength. He tracked the faded scent through the chaotic city, following an invisible path of spicy cologne. Finally, after an hour of running in the storm, Barnaby reached a tall, expensive apartment building. He saw the familiar black car parked under a street lamp. The dog hid in the dark shadows, breathing heavily. He had found the traitor's home. He was not here to attack. He was here to steal. The rain continued to pour down on the dark city street. Barnaby watched the expensive apartment building carefully. Suddenly, the heavy glass doors opened. Thomas walked out, holding an umbrella to protect his expensive suit. He was wearing a thick, dark blue wool sweater over his shoulders to stay warm. Thomas walked to his shiny black car and unlocked the doors. He took the warm blue sweater off his shoulders and threw it carelessly onto the wet hood of the car. He turned around to search his pockets for his car keys. This was the perfect moment for the brave dog. Barnaby ran silently out of the dark shadows. He jumped up gently and grabbed the blue wool sweater in his teeth. The fabric was incredibly soft, and it carried the fresh, overwhelming scent of Thomas. It smelled like expensive cologne, warm sweat, and the city. It was the perfect, real scent. As soon as Barnaby grabbed the sweater, He accidentally made a small splashing sound in a puddle. Thomas quickly turned around. The cruel man saw the wet, dirty golden retriever stealing his expensive clothing. Thomas instantly recognized the old family dog from the nursing home. "Hey, you stupid, dirty animal. Drop my sweater right now," Thomas screamed angrily. He did not care how the dog had traveled so far in a terrible storm. He only cared about his clothes. He looked around the wet street and saw a heavy, red brick lying near a broken wall. Thomas picked up the heavy brick. He threw it directly at the old dog with all his cruel strength. Barnaby tried to run, but he was too slow. The hard brick hit his back right leg with a terrible, loud crack. The dog screamed in sudden, blinding pain. His leg was completely broken. Barnaby fell hard onto the wet concrete. The intense pain shot through his entire body. He had the sharp teeth and strong jaws of a hunting dog. He could easily bite the evil man and fight back to protect himself. But Barnaby completely refused to let go of the blue sweater. If he dropped the sweater to bite Thomas, the fresh scent would wash away in the dirty rain. The mission was far more important than his own life. The loyal dog bit down harder on the wool fabric. He used his 3 good legs to push himself up from the ground. Thomas picked up another large rock, getting ready to hit the dog again. But Barnaby did not wait. Carrying the stolen, precious sweater, the brave dog limped quickly into the dark, rainy night. He ignored the terrible pain in his broken bone. He had to return to his dying master immediately. The hospital room was very quiet. The storm outside had slowly stopped. Nurse Sarah sat in a chair next to Arthur's bed, crying silently. The old man's breathing was incredibly weak and slow. The heart monitor beeped faintly. He was holding his empty hand in the air, still waiting for his son. Suddenly, the hospital door pushed open. Sarah gasped loudly. Barnaby dragged his bleeding, exhausted body into the bright room. He was completely soaked in dirty rain and blood. His back leg was terribly broken, hanging uselessly above the floor. But in his mouth, he carried a dry, dark blue sweater. "Oh, Barnaby, what happened to you?" Sarah cried, rushing forward to help the hurt animal. But the brave dog ignored her completely. He limped past the nurse, focusing entirely on the dying man in the bed. He used his last bit of energy to stand up on his 2 back legs. The pain in his broken bone was absolute torture, but Barnaby did not make a single sound. He gently dropped the blue wool sweater directly onto Arthur's chest. The fresh, strong scent of spicy cologne and warm sweat instantly filled the small space around the hospital bed. Next, Barnaby rested his large, wet head right under Arthur's shaking, empty hand. The dog let out a warm, soft breath and gently licked the old man's thin fingers. The feeling of the wet touch and the heavy weight felt exactly like a human hand holding him back. Arthur took a slow, deep breath. His blind, tired eyes fluttered softly. He smelled the fresh, undeniable scent of his oldest son right next to his face. He felt the warm, gentle pressure against his fingers. The perfect illusion was complete. The ultimate lie became a beautiful reality. A brilliant, joyful smile spread across Arthur's pale, wrinkled face. All the pain and sadness of the past year completely disappeared from his heart. "I knew you would come, Thomas," the old man whispered happily. "I always knew you loved me. Thank you for coming to say goodbye." Arthur squeezed the golden dog's fur, truly believing he was holding his son's hand. He sighed deeply, completely at peace with the world. The heart monitor let out one long, continuous beep. Arthur's chest stopped moving. He passed away in perfect, absolute happiness, totally unaware of the bitter truth. Barnaby slowly lowered his tired body to the floor. His broken leg throbbed with intense pain, but he did not care at all. He rested his chin on his paws and closed his eyes. His great mission was finally over. He had given his beloved master the sweetest, most beautiful gift possible. 3 days later, the bright morning sun filled the hospital lobby. Thomas walked through the front doors wearing a sharp, expensive suit. He did not look sad at all. He looked completely relaxed. He was here to quickly sign the official death papers so he could claim his father's remaining life insurance money. Thomas walked into the small administration office. Nurse Sarah was sitting there, petting a golden dog. Barnaby's broken back leg was covered in a thick, white medical cast. The dog watched the cruel man quietly. A tall man in a dark suit was standing next to Sarah's desk. It was a city lawyer. "Hello. I am Thomas, Arthur's son. Where do I sign to get my check?" Thomas asked confidently, pulling out a golden pen. The tall lawyer did not smile. He opened a thick leather folder and pulled out an official legal document with a bright red seal. "I am afraid there is no money for you, Thomas," the lawyer said in a very cold, professional voice. Thomas froze, staring at the man in total confusion. "What do you mean? I am his only living son. The money naturally belongs to me," Thomas yelled angrily. "Not anymore," the lawyer explained simply. "A few days before he died, your father asked Nurse Sarah to help him write a new, secret will. He legally removed your name completely. He donated his entire hidden life savings, over $200,000, to a local animal rescue charity." The lawyer pointed at the golden dog with the white cast. "The new charity building will be named after Barnaby, his loyal dog. Your father left you absolutely nothing." Thomas's face turned bright red with pure anger and shock. His evil, selfish plan had failed completely. He had lost everything. Thomas cursed loudly and turned around to leave the office. He was a broken, angry man with nothing to show for his cruelty. As he marched toward the open door, Barnaby slowly stood up on his 3 good legs. The dog limped forward, blocking the man's path for a second. Barnaby opened his mouth and dropped an object directly onto Thomas's expensive leather shoes. It was the old, brown leather shoe that the dog had used for months to create the beautiful lie. The scent was gone. The magic was over. It was just a piece of dirty, useless garbage now. Barnaby looked at the cruel son one last time. There was no anger in the dog's eyes, only complete emptiness. The brave dog turned around and limped slowly back to Nurse Sarah's side. He never looked at the traitor again. The ultimate lie was finished, and the pure, loyal truth had finally won.